It's been a privilege all this week to enter the arena of defending biblical truth. It's called Apologetics, and we are joined by a seasoned apologist. Dr. Andy Bannister is Canadian Director of Ravi, Zacharias International Ministries, and he posed the burning questions that we are unpacking in this marvelous 6-part documentary series. You connected with respected thinkers all over the world. And I am here in sackcloth and ashes today because I have neglected to use your full title this week, Dr. Andy Bannister, and that doctorate is so significant in what we are discussing here, Andy.
Well, that's right. My PhD surprises people. It's actually in Islamic studies. So when people hear I'm a doctor, they often assume it's in theology or Christian ministry or one of those things. But no, I studied the Quran and Arabic and Islam for 11 years.
11 years.
11 long years.
And that's not because you strayed from the faith. You shared with us in the very first program that it was Muslim arguments that rocked your foundation. It was initially a very weak foundation in Christianity. Just refresh us on
Yeah,
it.
very much so. So I'd grown up in a Christian home, never really been forced to think through the kind of foundations to what I believe. And then back in the late 1990s, I started trying to engage in street evangelism, sharing my faith with Muslims in London, where I grew up, and discovered that they knew their faith better than I knew mine, and in fact they knew mine better than I knew mine, and were pretty good at demolishing me. And so that forced me to begin reading, to begin thinking, and actually so fascinating that I find those conversations that it led to theological education and then to actually do a PhD, because I found myself thinking, look, if I want to treat my friends with respect, to show that I've actually done the work in order to engage them and to show them why I believe Islam is wrong and I don't believe Islam is true, but that requires work. And so, yeah, I did the PhD.
What a wonderful thing. I'm so glad that Ravi Zacharias found you. You know, one of the world's most renowned debaters for the faith in a way that is always respectful and leaves someone's dignity intact.
Yeah, and I think what many people don't necessarily appreciate about Ravi, one of the things that I respect tremendously about him, is he's spent particularly the last 10 years, I think, building up a team of younger ones. So I'm one of those, and there are now younger ones behind me. I'm now in my 40s, but we've got folks in their 20s. In fact, Ravi's now got a team of about 40 of us around him. And so that's a lasting legacy. He's really thinking long term. He won't, no one's here forever. And among that are folks like myself with speciality in Islam. We have folks with specialties in other religions and worldviews. Because I think, as you say, Ravi's always wanted to show that we respect people. We respect those that we're debating and dialoguing with. And therefore, you need to make sure you have people on your team, I think, who understand those different religions so that we can address them meaningfully.
So when you hear, and you must, oh, you Christians think you have the corner on truth? One way, yours is the only way? And certainly in the case, even if it wasn't a Muslim, to learn that you have taken the time to so thoroughly study another religion means you are not narrow-minded.
Well, it's very, very helpful, actually. You're right, Moira, that I didn't realize this until I began studying it, but not merely has the study helped with engaging Muslims. One of the most common objections I hear, often from Canadian university students, but we hear it in the UK too, our cultures are quite similar, is this exactly the person who looks at you and very sort of seriously sort of says to you, the trouble with you Christians is you're arrogant, you're intolerant, you're narrow-minded because you believe that only Christianity is true and these other religions are false. And what I've learned to do now is just turn that gently around with a question and say, well, that's I understand where you're coming from, but can you begin by telling me what other religions have you studied? Usually the answer is none of them. And then I can say, look, I accept I haven't studied Buddhism or Hinduism, all of those, but I have done 11 years of doctoral level work in Islam, and I can tell you that Islam and Christianity are fundamentally, utterly different. And to say that is not to be intolerant. Actually, it's more. I think to say that is to be respectful. Because if I say every other religion believes the same as I do, what I'm basically saying is I can stick my fingers in my ears and not listen to them because they believe the same as I do. Why would I need to listen? If you and I are identical in all of our beliefs, we have nothing to talk about. You're just a carbon copy of me. But if you believe something different, well, now I have to listen. I have to ask questions, I have to think. And I've loved talking to my Muslim friends over the years about faith, because it's forced me to think. It's forced me to try to understand, and I'm still trying to understand, because Islam is a huge topic. and you can study it for a lifetime and never understand all of it. But I think this simplistic all religions are the same usually means, when someone says that, means they haven't actually, with all respect, studied any of them.
And of course, you're living in one of the world's most multi-ethnic, multicultural cities in the world, Toronto.
Yeah, outside Moose Jaw, it's the most, I believe.
You're funny. Okay, what a tolerant society says, and you, I'm sure, hear this all the time too, is that you know, you have your truth and I have mine.
Yeah.
But truth is mutually exclusive. How can an intelligent person, and I don't mean to be insulting here, but think about it.
Yeah.
How can what you believe and what I believe both be true? They collide. They just can't happen.
Yeah, it's a great question, Moira, and in fact I'd say two things quickly in response. The first thing is this: well, the problem is that in Canada and many other Western countries we've elevated tolerance to the supreme virtue.
Capital T.
Yeah, but actually, do you know what? I hate the word tolerance. I'll be that strong. I loathe the word tolerance. Tolerate is what I do to my 2-year-old when her toilet training goes wrong. We tolerate a toddler. We don't tolerate adults who are on the same level as us. So I think the word tolerant should be banished from the public square, quite frankly. We should understand, we should listen, we should dialogue, we should debate. Tolerate is what you do to something lower than you, not somebody on the same level. But then out of that, I think we've bought in, many of us, to this idea that it sounds urbane and sophisticated to say, you know, everybody has their own truth. What's true for you is true for you, it's not true for me. The trouble is that every truth statement is actually exclusive. Let me illustrate. If I say to you that 2 + 2 is 4, I'm excluding people who think that it's 5, 9, 16 or 437, no matter how many economists may tell you otherwise. If you got on an aeroplane and the pilot came over the tannoy to say, do you know what, I'm a postmodern pilot. I believe that everybody can have their own interpretation of the flight controls, and that's fine. And in fact, I've asked one of the one of the flight attendants to fly today just because I'm inclusive. I suspect you'd be hammering on the exit saying, let me out. We instinctively know that there is something about the nature of truth, that it's exclusive. In fact, even if you say, I believe all religions are true, you are excluding those who think that only one religion is true. The only way not to be exclusive is to say nothing at all.
Wow. Think about that for a minute. Good argument. Good argument. You've done this before. Okay, I just want to warn folks as we go into this clip from the documentary that it's not a back and forth. Today we're going to hear two men who believe truth is subjective and relative, followed by two women who believe that truth is objective and absolute.
That's right.
You ready?
Here we go.
One of the wonderful things about Toronto, about much of the Canadian context, and indeed increasingly much of the North American context, is that we do kind of go from Anglicanism to Zoroastrianism, the A to Z, as far as that's concerned.
My own feeling is that nobody has a monopoly on the truth, and so just to let it go. People are in different phases according to their karma, according to what makes sense to them at that point in their history or their culture, and so there's truth in every form.
I was on the street one day and a guy came up to me and we were having a bit of a conversation about God, and he was trying to give me a book about Hinduism, about a guru that he followed, and I was having a pleasant conversation with him, but I didn't really want the book. I wasn't going to read it. I thought he should either keep it or give it to someone who actually would read it. Anyway, we were having that conversation, and when it reached the point where he was asking me what I believed, and I said, well, I follow Jesus as my guru, right? And I'd invite you to follow him too. He immediately changed in his manner and demeanor and said, oh, you're arrogant. You think you have the only way. You think Jesus is the truth and everybody else is wrong. And how can you be so arrogant? That's the claim that comes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And I said to him, it's not my claim. It's Jesus' own claim about who he was and what he did. And I'm simply following him and inviting you to join that, that journey.
I think the sense of paralysis that most people feel as they come to examine different religions, if they become convinced, look, there is a God, and I want to find out who this God is, often people feel almost, paralyzed at that point because they feel like the choice is too complicated to make. That here are, these major world religions, they basically look like they're saying the same thing. How do I even begin to sort out the mess of the confusion of it?
Dr. Bannister, all roads lead to God?
It's a common thing I hear actually on university campuses, do all religions lead to God? And when I first heard that question, I first used to get it, I tried answering it all kinds of different ways. And then over time, I've realized there's actually a really helpful answer to it. When someone says to you, do all religions lead to God? It's very helpful to point something out. Only Christianity promises to lead you to God. What do I mean? Well, Hinduism and Buddhism promise you annihilation. Your identity will be absorbed into the sort of cosmic oneness behind everything. You will no longer exist. Of course, atheism, which is a religion, we could come to that, offers you annihilation. What does Islam offer? Well, Islam offers paradise. It promises a paradise full of beautiful women and fruit trees and all kinds of lovely things. But God is not present. Only Christianity actually promises you that what is waiting for you in paradise is to walk and talk with our Lord again, as Adam and Eve walked with God in the garden. Only Christianity promises to lead you to God. So actually, when someone says to me now, do all religions lead to God? I like to look them in the eye and say, actually, no religion leads to God. Only God can lead us to God. And that's what he's offered to do in Jesus Christ. It is a claim unique to Christianity.
Come unto me.
Yeah,
Come
so that was
unto me, Jesus said.
But as you said in the introduction, I love the conversational tone. I hope that we've managed to strike in the documentary. So www.burningquestions.ca is the website with lots of clips and resources, and also on the website as well, Moira, there's a study guide that people can download. We're very, very keen that churches and church groups, small groups, pick up Burning Questions and use it as a resource, because we don't just want people to watch this and go, hey, that was fun, an hour on a Sunday night. My hope and my prayer is that Christians will watch this and use it as a resource to speak to their neighbours, and that they'll also want to sit down and watch it with our non-church friends, unchurched friends. Invite your neighbours round, invite your family who don't know Christ round to sit down and watch this. Put the cocoa on, get the popcorn, and then you can turn to your friend afterwards and go, what did you think of what you've just seen? And my prayer is that it will start a conversation that will lead somewhere significant.
I'm going to dare to say that even if your faith, your foundation isn't Christian, that you would find this beneficial. I know that I have had thoughts and propositions that I would have maybe presented during my time with Dr. Bannister that he won't let me do, because they're so polite. And they, everyone involved in Ravi Zacharias Ministries is just wise and sensitive, and the love for others comes through in the presentation of truth. I think that is a hallmark of
Well, you're very kind, and I hope anybody watching the show would not feel that we've misrepresented. Was my goal. We have atheists, Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, other voices on there, and I hope anybody watching Burning Questions from one of those backgrounds would say, look, I may disagree with what Andy says, I may disagree with the conclusions the show draws, but at least, my team, as it were, got a fair crack at the whip and we listened.
Well, we're going to give a little fair crack, I hope, tomorrow to a few big themes: the reliability of the Old and New Testaments, and who is Jesus?
Biggest burning question of all, eh?
I guess.
Burningquestions.ca.
Good one to answer. We'll do our best next time.